It's 3 a.m. in Caracas, the kind of darkness that swallows, screams, whole. Then the boots hit concrete, heavy, deliberate, unstoppable. Door after door, the same ritual. 3 sharp knocks. A pause that stretches like eternity. Then the splintering. Crash of wood and steel. Families torn from beds. Children clutching toys they'll never see again. This is Maduro's operation, knock knock, and the knocking never stops. Flash forward. JFK Airport, Terminal 4. Different continent, same terror.
Venezuelan.
Migrants, mothers, fathers, kids who survived the knock now face. America's version of brutality. Handcuffs, bite into wrists, still scarred from their homeland's fury. Pull-ups, they call them. Forced physical exercises designed to break spirits already shattered. The land of the free. More like the land of the knee. But here's where it gets sick. While families collapse under fluorescent airport lights, Donald Trump sits in a leather chair, grinning like he just told the world's best joke. Minor slip, he chuckles to reporters. Just greenlit some CIA operations inside Venezuela. No big deal. The casualness is breathtaking. The cruelty, calculated. Cut to a mock newsroom. Where truth lives, Jon Stewart stares at the monitor, his face a canvas of disbelief and rage. The footage, loops raids, cuffs, that goddamn smirk. His team surrounds him like knights around a wounded king, each face reflecting the same question. How did we get here? Tensions. Jon's voice cracks like thunder. This isn't tensions. This is Terrand. We're complicit. The newsroom erupts. Airport pull-ups aren't policy. Someone shouts. Their panic dressed as procedure. Another voice cuts through. Minor slip. That's major war crimes with a media smile. Jon's eyes, narrow. That familiar look when comedy dies and consequence is born. The camera pushes in slowly, catching every line of exhaustion, every flicker of fury. This isn't just another segment. This is a reckoning. The room falls silent, except for the hum of monitors and the weight of truth. Jon's fingers drum against the desk once twice, building rhythm like a heartbeat before explosion. But when Jon unpacks Trump's slip, the real bombshell drops. To see how Venezuela's fire reached our shores, rewind to the powder keg that lit this fuse. Section 2. Raise the stakes. Soon the debate hall is a pressure cooker. Camera rigs like vultures. Rows of phones held aloft. An audience stitched from every zip code. Nurses, students, undocumented workers, veterans' faces that will carry tonight's moment into living rooms and group chats. The issues aren't abstract. They're blood and rent, visas and food stamps. The promise that if you work, you live with dignity. Tonight, that promise is on trial. Across the stage sits the villain of the hour, not a single man, but a system that feeds on fear. For him, every scandal is a ladder. Every diverted headline is leverage. Power is a narrative. Control the story, and you control the clock, the courts, the borders. He needs the nation to believe the story he tells, a tidy tale of toughness, of enemies outside and weakness within. If the public buys it, he preserves impunity. Sanctions ignored, raids justified, dissent labeled treason. The stakes are raw, consolidated power, unchallenged authority. A history rewritten to favor the ruthless. On the other side stands the hero, not a cape, but a conviction. The news team, the witnesses at the border, the migrants who cross oceans. At the risk of everything, people whose names don't fit into broadcast tickers, they are fighting for something simple and enormous. Dignity. For truth to be more than a hashtag. For policy to mean protection, not persecution. For a country that keeps its promises to the vulnerable, not just to those with microphones. If they fail, the cost is measured in disappeared neighbors, closed doors, and a fear that migrancy will become a stain rather than a story of survival. There is an electric edge in the air, because this moment matters beyond ratings. It will shape how institutions react when leaders stray, how neighbors treat one another, whether the invisible become expendable. Social feeds buzz like beehives, clips, hot takes, the first viral moments. Pollsters scramble. Influencers shout into voids. The White House drafts, denials, and then against every spreadsheet and focus group prediction, something happens that no pollster planned for. The mask slips. Not a flinch or an accidental quip, but a reveal so plain that the country can no longer look away. When it happens, the audience feels it in their teeth. A cold recognition that what was whispered in corridors has been said aloud on stage. Because when the mask slips, the country sees. But masks don't just slip, they're crafted. Let's look at who made his picture. A, who never earned the throne, he simply inherited the corpse of a revolution. Nicolás Maduro, the bus driver turned tyrant, steps from the long shadow of Hugo Chavez, like a ghost, dressed in fatigues. It's 2013. Chavez is dead, his body barely cold, when Maduro slides into the presidency on a whisper of endorsement and a landslide of lies. A special election, more like a coronation rigged in reverse. Narrow victory over caporals, screams of fraud, demands for recounts, brushed aside like yesterday's headlines. Maduro wins by the skin of his stolen teeth, and Venezuela's descent accelerates. Fast forward through the chaos he cultivated. Oil prices crash in 2014. The economy freefalls into hyperinflation, shelves empty, bellies hollow. But Maduro, he tightens the noose, expands presidential powers, packs the Supreme Court, nationalizes everything in sight. ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips, independent press, silenced. By 2015, voters revolt at the polls, handing his PSUV party a humiliating defeat after 16 years of Chavismo dominance. Does he reflect? Reform? No. He declares a state of emergency, hands police and army carte blanche to crush dissent. The opposition wins the National Assembly. He dissolves it by decree in 2017. The Supreme Court, his puppet, assuming legislative powers in a midnight power grab. International outrage explodes, revoked only when the world screams loud enough. But Maduro's genius for survival is his mask of contradictions. He begs for sanction relief, promises fair elections to unlock us dollars. 2018 presidential race. A sham. Opposition boycotts after Machado is banned on fabricated fraud charges, rivals jailed or exiled. He wins with 68% in a turnout of ghosts only, 31% show up. Juan Guaidó rises in 2019, declares himself interim president, backed by the US, Canada, a dozen Latin nations. Maduro clings, Russia and China pumping his oil veins, propping the petrostate corpse. Guaido Sapril scoup, flickers and dice oil security forces. Intelligence head flips, then flips back. Lopez flees to Spanish asylum. Enter 2024, the rigged masterpiece. July 28th election. Edmundo Gonzalez crushes him. Luz Chichi dal censure. Opposition tallies 83% of records, proving it. Maduro declares victory. Anyway, Supreme Court rubber stamps the steel. Protests erupt even in Chavez slums. Statues of Chavez toppled by the poor he betrayed. Maduro unleashes Bolivarian fury. His post-election massacre. Operation Knock Knock rolls out. 3 raps at midnight. Doors smashed. Protesters yanked from beds. Families shattered. Venap launches a snitch line. Masterpiece where neighbors rat neighbors for bounty. Killings, spike, arrests, flood the gulags. Poor Chavistas, the very base he built on, now targets, if they dare whisper doubt. Machado exiled. Gonzalez flees to Spain, under arrest warrant, coerced into a fake surrender letter. Russia whispers tactics. China buys the oil dodge billions laundered through shadow fleets, while kids starve. Maduro smirks from podiums, cold laugh echoing over raid cams, grainy body-worn footage of boots on necks, mothers wailing. He promises revolution, delivers repression, begs for Poles to ease pain, rigs them to cement eternity. Brogan, CI, down at his own, exiling threats, blaming Yankee ghosts for empty plates. But pressure mounts. U.S. sanctions bite harder, Senate roars for accountability. His allies strain, the economy hemorrhages 80% of its worth. Cracks, spiderweb facade protests don't die, they multiply. Even tyrants have a shelf life, but even tyrants slip right into America's crosshairs. Enter the heroes who turned outrage into spotlight. Before Jon Stewart became America's truth-telling conscience, he was just another New York dreamer grinding through comedy clubs with a head full of jokes and a heart heavy with questions. Born Jonathan Stewart, Leibowitz in the Bronx, raised in Jersey suburbs, he cut his teeth on late-night stages where hecklers were friendlier than cable news pundits. But 1999 changed everything. The Daily Show desk called, and suddenly comedy had a mission: make people laugh at power until power stopped being funny. Then came September 11th. The towers fell. The world cracked, and Jon found himself holding a microphone in a studio thick with smoke and grief. That first show, back, unscripted, real, it wasn't comedy. It was witness. The view from my apartment was the World Trade Center, he said, voice breaking. Now it's gone. In that moment, satire became surgery, cutting through lies to find the beating heart of truth. The Bush years followed WMDs that weren't there. Wars that wouldn't end. Spin that made heads swim. Jon didn't just mock the machine. He dissected it, piece by bloody piece. The Daily Show became a foxhole for the disillusioned, while Fox News spun fairy tales and CNN chased ratings. Jon's newsroom cramped, chaotic, caffeinated, dug into the stories that mattered. His team wasn't just writers and producers. They were investigators, advocates, the kids who asked why until the grown-ups got uncomfortable. Samantha Bee tracked voter suppression. John Oliver exposed corporate greed. Stephen Colbert lampooned right-wing rage so perfectly that conservatives didn't realize they were being roasted. Together, they built something unprecedented. Comedy that changed minds. Satire that saved lives. But even heroes take breaks. Jon left the desk in 2015, exhausted from 16 years of calling out lies in a world that seemed to love them. He returned to his farm, tended animals, fought for 9/11's first responders, with the same fury he'd aimed at politicians. The Trump era exploded without him. Chaos unleashed. Norms shattered, cruelty normalized. Jon watched from the sidelines, speaking out when conscience demanded, but keeping his powder dry. Then came the border crisis. Kids in cages, families separated, migrants dying in deserts and detention centers. Jon's team, scattered across networks, but united in purpose, started investigating. They found the pull-ups, forced exercises designed to humiliate asylum seekers, airport detention centers where Venezuelan families who'd fled Maduro's terror faced America's own brand of brutality. The irony was sickening. Escaping one tyrant's boots only to meet another's handcuffs. The news team regrouped like Avengers assembling. Correspondents embedded in border facilities. Producers tracked detention contracts. Researchers followed the money from sanctions to suffering. They documented everything. The overcrowded cells, the inadequate medical care, the children who stopped speaking because trauma stole their words. Fox called it invasion. CNN called it crisis. Jon's team called it what it was. Systematic dehumanization, wrapped in policy paper. Their restraint wasn't fear, it was precision. Every fact checked twice, every source protected, every story built against bad faith attacks. They knew the backlash would be swift and vicious. Right-wing media would call them biased. Politicians would question their patriotism. Social platforms would throttle their reach. But they also knew something else. The truth has gravity. Release it at the right moment, and it pulls everything else into its orbit. When Trump's minor slip about CIA operations hit the news, Jon's team was ready. They'd been tracking covert funding, mapping intelligence networks, connecting dots between Washington war rooms and Caracas killing fields. The Venezuela story wasn't just foreign policy, was American fingerprints on foreign triggers. And when they found the smoking gun, the connection between U.S. operations and Maduro's crackdowns, they knew they had the piece that would make the whole puzzle visible. The moment arrived like thunder. Tension crackling, stakes rising, the world watching. Jon sat at his desk, surrounded by his team, armed with facts that could topple narratives and shame that could spark movements. This wasn't just another segment. This was warfare, truth versus spin, dignity versus cruelty, democracy versus authoritarianism. When tensions peaked, they didn't blink, they struck. The studio lights up, the insults fly. Game on. The studio heat is palpable, lights blazing like interrogation lamps, cameras circling like sharks. Jon leans forward, fingers steepled, that familiar smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. Across the table sit the usual suspects. A Fox contributor with dead eyes and talking points. A former Trump official polished to a gleam. A think tank wonk who probably sleeps in a suit. Let's connect some dots. Jon begins, voice deceptively casual. Maduro's knock raids yank protesters from beds in Caracas. Venezuelan families flee that terror, reach JFK, and boom, force pull-ups in detention. Same brutality, different zip code. Coincidence? The Fox guy straightens, jaw set. Jon, you're comparing apples to national security. These are necessary screening procedures. Necessary. A correspondent cuts in, laptop open, receipts ready. Forcing asylum seekers to do jumping jacks until they collapse is screening. The Trump official jumps in, smooth as oil. Look, the president's approach to Venezuela shows strength. Some strength looks uncomfortable too. Strength? Jon's eyebrows shoot up. Is that what we're calling Trump's minor slip about greenlighting CIA ops? Because when I accidentally greenlight covert operations, I usually apologize to my wife, not laugh about it on camera. The room shifts. Split screens catch every micro-expression. DeWong's nervous swallow. The Fox guy's clenched fists. Beads of sweat forming under studio lights. The audience, packed with immigrants, activists, and Jon's faithful, starts to rumble. Someone shouts, "Tell them!" Another voice, "Stop the raids!" The Trump defender doubles down, voice rising. The administration's Venezuela policy is comprehensive, strategic. Jon's team pounces like wolves. Is that what you call watching Maduro steal an election, then helping him terrorize the people who voted against him? The noise builds crosstalk, accusation, the high whine of mic feedback as voices overlap and tempers fray. The Fox contributor waves his hands, trying to regain control. You're conflating separate issues. weaponizing tragedy for Jon's voice cuts through the chaos like a blade. The crowd roars approval, feet stomping, voices chanting. The opposition is rattled, now sweat stains spreading, talking points crumbling, that polished confidence cracking like ice. Then Jon pauses, and the room dies. What came next? Pure, unfiltered fire. The silence hangs like smoke. Jon's eyes sweep the table, predator sizing up prey. When he speaks, his voice is steel wrapped in velvet. Let's get something straight. This isn't about tensions. This is about tyranny. Click! The screens explode with receipts. Election tallies, Shungin Gonzalez's Bifangeloshus landslide security, footage of midnight raiders boots, screams, children torn from mother's arms. Then Trump's face, grinning like he just told the world's best joke. Just greenlit some CIA operations. Inside Venezuela, minor slip. Minor slip, Jon repeats, letting the words hang like a noose. 25 people killed in post-election crackdowns. 2,000 arrested. Kids disappeared into regime gulags. Bashar minor slip. The Trump defender opens his mouth. Nothing comes out. Here's what kills me, Jon continues, the room leaning forward. Maduro knocks down doors in Caracas slums. We cuff families at airport gates. Same brutality, same broken promises. Same we're just following orders. Horse shit. The screens? Shift grainy detention footage. Venezuelan asylum seekers forced into jumping jacks until they collapse. A mother clutching her 5-year-old both in handcuffs. The girl's eyes empty, haunted, old bet child, fled a dictator's terror. Jon's voice cracks with rage. She made it to America, the land of the free, and we welcomed her with ... He pauses. Let's see homage burn pull-ups, forced exercises. Because nothing says, give me you're tired, you're poor like making traumatized kids do calisthenics. The Fox guy tries to interrupt. Jon's hand shoots up. Stop. No, you don't get to spin this. His voice drops to a whisper that somehow fills the room. Your minor slip is their lifetime scar. Your necessary procedures are their nightmares. Your comprehensive strategy is comprehensive suffering. The audience erupts standing ovation. Voices raised. Fists pumping. The opposition sits frozen. Talking points shattered. Spin cycles jammed. The Trump official's face is chalk white. The Fox contributor stares at his notes like they might save him. Jon leans back, voice rising over the roar. Truth isn't partisan, it's patriotic. And the truth is this. We became the thing we claimed to fight. Pin drop pause. Then the dam breaks jeers. Chants. The sound of conscience awakening. The studio shakes with righteous fury. The clip went nuclear hashtag. Tsunami. Incoming. Watch the world. Flip the script. The clip detonates overnight. Hashtag airport pull-ups and hashtag Trump slip ignite on every platform as a million short loops and testimony. Threads cascade through feeds. Within 24 hours, the best snippets hit 100 million views. Migrants' first-person videos, tear-streaked and unedited. Flood timelines with names, faces, and pleading voices that algorithms can't mute. Celebrities amplify the outraged late-night hosts. Riff. Actors post raw endorsements. Athletes boycott appearances tied to administration. Fundraisers, and the momentum leaps from meme labs into Senate hallways where aides wake up to trending clips on their tablets. Pundits who once dismissed the border as a mess pivot on live TV. Some awkwardly embracing accountability while others scramble to refocus the frame. Politicians react predictably and plainly. Hardliners like Machado cheer the crackdown, doubling down on tough rhetoric and demanding even harsher measures. Their supporters amplify security talking points as proof of backbone. Moderates and opposition figures fracturesome exploit the moment to press for immediate investigations. Others fear being painted soft on security and distance themselves, deepening the rift in the anti-Maduro coalition. The villain's spin machine jams. Maduro's regime issues a plea for UN aid and simultaneously tries to paint the uproar as U.S.-sponsored destabilization, but the video receipt, serrate clips, leaked documents, and the juxtaposition with airport footage undermine the narrative, leaving his diplomats on defensive and his patrons quietly recalibrating. Inside the Pentagon and intelligence circles, alarm bells ring. Analysts trace the social waves arc, mapping how civilian outrage translates into policy pressure. Contingency memos circulate. Public affairs teams prepare statements, and commanders watch for unrest spillover because viral fury now shapes diplomatic levers. The immediate emotional landscape is electric. Vindication for victims, communal catharsis for advocates, and a palpable sense that a long-simmering wrong has finally been exposed. Street vigils turn into organized hearings. Fundraisers for legal aid surge. Grassroots groups compile dossiers for congressional aids. The social high shimmers with righteous momentum until institutional machinery tests its staying power. Cinematic feeds reflect the frenzied tweet storms cascade in columns. Meme carousels loop the mic drop. Global maps pulse with shared density as broadcasters track the viral epicenter. Slow-motion replays of the raid footage cut with solemn interviews make for an image the public won't soon forget. But memes fade, truth endures. Here's the lesson that outlasts the headlines. Asterisk, the studio lights fade, but the truth blazes on. What Jon Stewart exposed wasn't just Trump's minor slip or Maduro's midnight raids, it was the mirror reflecting our own capacity for systemic cruelty. When we cuff asylum-seeking children at airport gates while condemning dictators for dragging protesters from beds, we become the contradiction we claim to oppose. The lesson cuts deeper than partisan scorecards. Repression anywhere threatens dignity everywhere. Whether it's Caracas slums or JFK detention centers, the machinery of dehumanization operates on the same blueprints via the other. Silence, dissent, normalize brutality until compassion becomes radical. But here's the crescendo. Jon built toward truth that makes his mic drop more than viral spectacle. Minor slips build major walls, and we tear them down. Every necessary procedure that strips asylum seekers of dignity. Every comprehensive strategy that treats desperate families like enemy combatants. Every minor slip that greenlights covert operations while ignoring their human costs. These aren't isolated failures, they're foundation stones for the fortress of indifference. Jon's team didn't just expose hypocrisy. They modeled the antidote. Service over spin. Grit over glamour. Truth over tribal comfort. They chose the harder path, investigating detention centers instead of chasing trending topics. Protecting sources instead of collecting clicks. Holding power accountable instead of currying favor. The call echoes beyond cable news. Your voice joins this fight. Not through hashtags or hot takes, but through the unglamorous work of citizenship, demanding transparency from representatives. Supporting legal aid organizations, choosing news sources that investigate rather than inflate, treating migrants as neighbors rather than statistics. Dawn breaks over detention centers and newsrooms alike. The borders we defend aren't just geographic, they're moral. And when we choose dignity over division, truth over tribal loyalty, we don't just expose tyrants, masks, we remove our own. The movement starts now with you. Let's make it real.